All right, guys. This is not exactly tanky therapy. This is more like an emergency broadcast. It's like a quick reaction because everybody, normally we record on very specific days and times when all of us are available. But this is one of those days where like it's pretty clear nobody's gonna get any work done. All I was gonna do all day was look at what other people are saying about the International Court of Justice ruling. So I thought we might as well and talk about it on a chat with these guys. So. Right, we're recording during the Electronic Intifada live stream, but this is probably going to come out right after it. So you're probably coming here from there if you were watching that, and then you'll come here from here. So we have Mateo, we have Sina, and that's what we have because all our Electronic Intifada people are busy doing electronic Intifada type of things.
They're intifadaing electronically.
Yeah, they are. And that's what they should be doing. So I don't know. What do you guys like? What's your quick reaction? I thought I'll just say mentally, I was preparing really hard for the court to say we have no jurisdiction or to say we don't think it's happening or whatever. And I was preparing for all the judges to sort of vote all the Western judges to vote pro-Israel because their countries are pro-Israel. I was preparing for all of that, and I was just getting like into this zone of like, that's fine. You know what? That's fine. That's fine. What the struggle goes on. Like it's international law itself that's on trial, and they've just discredited their own system, and that's how it's got to be. And then it was like 15-2 and 16-1. 16-1 in several cases where the Israeli judge was in favor of things like stopping incitement to genocide. And
that Ugandan judge, man. Judge Uganda.
Judge Seputinde said, no, Israel does not have to stop incitement to genocide if they don't want to. Israel can do whatever the hell they want.
I really want to talk to her, by the way.
She's a mystery, but I believe that this mystery will be solved by sometime this evening. There are theories about Christian Zionism. There are theories about Entebbe. There are theories about well, those are the two that I've seen.
It doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, like the decision.
In fact, no, it doesn't matter at all.
I guess at the outset, I'll put it this way: my feelings were much like you. Last night, I went to bed.
Yeah,
I went to bed very distraught. I mean, I usually do these days, partly because like I doom scroll when I go to bed, which is probably a bad idea.
Very bad.
But
I didn't set my alarm, but I woke up right at 7 o'clock.
I woke up
like,
at
I'm not going to check. I'm not going to check. And then I started checking, and then I started playing it live.
Because I was also of that same mood. I was like, when has international law ever counted? When have these things ever, like, when have these institutions that were erected by the imperialists for their own, to like legally whitewash their own institute and their own foreign policies? Like, we know this to be the case for a lot of different stories. I mean, like, this is like just considering the Russia-Ukraine case that they took on, like to think about how they called for a ceasefire there. They ordered,
but that was different, right? Like,
that was different.
Legally, those are different because Ukraine took Russia to the court. They said there's a dispute between us.
Yeah, it's true.
The issue of the dispute is that Russia's attacking us, and so the resolution we're asking for is that you tell Russia to stop attacking us. And so that was like very much.
It was different, in
the purview legally, right? And so legally speaking, I don't know. I don't remember. Do you guys remember whether South Africa asked for a ceasefire?
Yes, it asked Israel to stop attacks against Gaza and on Gaza. Yeah,
all operations. Yeah, that's
all
right.
operations.
I remember the agent. So they didn't give them that, but they gave them everything else. And Ali Abunimah, who's live streaming right now, was saying that a ceasefire has this implication. Asking for a ceasefire has this implication that it's a conflict where there's two sides. But in a genocide, you don't ask for a ceasefire. In a genocide, you're asking to stop the genocide, to stop the genocidal activities. So I don't even like. I think you can make some case that this is a partial victory from the court perspective, like just in court. But to me, it looks like a pretty total victory in court. They didn't try to split the difference. They didn't try to say, okay, Israel's got a point, but South Africa's got a point too. They said all of the things South Africa said, we agree with. We're going to grant provisional measures. The provisional measures are the following, and among them wasn't a stopping of all operations, but like legally speaking, politically speaking, it's just this to me, this is like as good as they could have done. I was expecting much, much, much worse. So I was very surprised.
Well, Matteo, you've been pretty skeptical in our group chat. Why don't you start?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that if we want to use the term victory, which is, I mean, the main problem for me is victory over what? I mean, it's a public opinion victory, maybe, yeah, it could be. But what I just want to say is that the achievement was when South Africa filed the case. That to me was the achievement per se. The moment South Africa, global South country, puts the genocide accusation on Israel in front of the whole world, that's the achievement. Whatever is going to be the legal decision then, because that's where I don't trust then the legal system and international law anymore. Because there are plenty of UN resolutions, saying what they should say and what, but nobody enforces them, nobody follows them. So South Africa filing the case, yes, that is showing that the global South, historically, it's participating to the formation of a new international order. Now, I strongly doubt that the court, whatever it was going to say, will make a difference. That's, to me, I mean, again, I go back to the very first speech of Sayed, which is the battlefield. Yeah. That's it. The battlefield is everything.
Okay, here's why I've got I think it's a little bit more than symbolic in public opinion. It's not just symbolic in public opinion, because this whole edifice of international law and the United Nations and all these institutions, they're not just opinion. They're also the framework in which all of this bureaucracy rolls out. Laws and people's beliefs in those laws and people's jobs and people evaluating these things and these facts, all of these things are how the system runs. It's not just like we are all people who think that ultimately hard power prevails. Like that's one of the things that we have in common, and that's one of the reasons we always talk to each other. But like that's an analytical point, but it's constituted, like the law and these institutions are part of that. Like you don't there's no army that doesn't have rules. There's no military organizing without the law. There's no
Israel,
right? Yeah. So okay. So let me just say, Muin Rabbani, who I'm not always in agreement with, but he had a pretty interesting thread with lots of interesting points. And one of them was, he says, it boils down to a single issue, whether it determines that South Africa has presented a plausible accusation that Israel's committing genocide. And then the verdict was unambiguous, and Israel's rebuttals were unconvincing. He says history was made today with a capital H. And this is his take is Israel and its Western sponsors can no longer mobilize the Holocaust to shield themselves from accountability for their crimes against the Palestinian people. He said, no more. As Israel, as of today, associated with the crime of genocide primarily as perpetrator, not as victim. Israel's policies will henceforth be judged on their own merits rather than against the long shadow of European history. He says the provisional measures are of secondary importance. We should not confuse the ICJ with the UN Security Council. And so I thought those were all pretty good points. Like there's a public opinion, there's a narrative, there's the institutional structures, but there's also like Israel's defense, which was basically like, one, we can do whatever we want. Two, what's done to us is always worse than what we're doing, was not bought. Nobody bought that. Like a court that would be inclined to buy that didn't buy that. So that's one. And then Nimar Sultani, who's even more optimistic, maybe overly optimistic. He says this is likely to start the political dynamics to end Israel's genocidal war. There's no Israeli exception, and that's his point. He's like, there's no more Israeli exceptionalism after this ruling. So that's like,
it's too early to call for that. That's that's what I think. It's fun. We still need to see the whole range of reaction that it's going to take place, but it's way too early to make the statements, according to me. It's fine. Yes, logically, maybe that can happen. But is okay. A country that is based on ethnic cleansing, on the violation of international law. Now, all of a sudden, we are thinking of defeating it through international law.
No.
Yeah, well, the word defeat is the problem here.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. But victory comes with defeat. That's why I'm saying let's with the victory.
No, they were defeated in court, but that doesn't mean that the struggle is over.
No.
Yeah, equating Palestinian liberation with a legal court case in this setting of like what that we know is dominated by imperialists who are on the side and aiding and abetting this genocide and always have been, who themselves are built on the same genocidal foundations, right? Like this is where your mind has to like open up to like the true like funhouse mirrors of everything that like, yeah, like we're like, it's like I'm communicating in memes here, but it's like the two scientists, it's like the two astronauts meme. And it's like, wait, so it's like looking at the West and like modernity and be like, oh wait, it's all just settler colonialism. And it's like, yeah, it's always has been.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, and so like partly recognizing that like the makeup of our modern world for centuries now has been imbricated in settler colonial genocide, that it's an ongoing project in the country that Justin and I live in, like Matteo, you live in Italy. It's like you can't.
We spearheaded.
Yeah, the partly are like the ones who like helped initiate it, but in terms of like and especially in like the origins of it, right? Like, I mean, can you say that like, can you say it's in the same like is Italy settler colonial in the same way the US and Canada is? I would say no, that it's like not like that these like European and like, but ultimately they're all part of a same sort of like a historical kind of I guess like tragedy really that has like rewritten like the DNA of our planet, right? Like you go to South America, everybody's speaking Spanish, that's because of settler colonialism. Like you go here, everybody's speaking English, that's because of settler, like everything in our lives is because of settler colonialism at a foundational level. So then now we see it live and naked and working itself out in the most violent system in a place like Gaza, in a place like the West Bank. And we've been watching it for 75 years, so to speak, unfold at different rates, mind you. And so looking at that and finally looking at this case, and you see finally there is some kind of like legal accountability. Now, mind you, the ICJ has ruled against Israel before, right? 2009. Like we know that, and the U.S. like finagled a way to like get out of that. We know that the U.S. has its own legislation that is barred. That like if any one of its own commanders or anything or military people are held up, like they'll invade The Hague. Basically, they're gonna, which they already are. Yes. They're already colonized Europe. Like we know that like the hard power of our world is oriented westward, and it's oriented towards like the people who are aiding and abetting this. So like you hold that in your head and then you look at this judgment, and that makes it pretty remarkable though, because like I had that same feeling as I was saying that like, oh God, they're going to finagle some sort of fucking way out of this.
I thought they were going to get out on a technicality or something.
And they didn't. And like the Ugandan judge of all people is the one that's like the funniest shit in the world. I was like,
16-1. 16-1. The first time she said 16-1, I was like, well, obviously Barack.
No.
And then she reads Barack on the 16, and then I'm like,
more Zionist than Zionist.
But like,
gosh,
can I just say, okay, so Matteo,
she's Afro-pessimist.
Let me just try to convince you. Let me try to convince you with two more things. One is like just in terms of what actually happened here, because you're gonna be disappointed if you think the range of possibilities included something that could never have happened, which is like, if the court had ordered a ceasefire, Israel, it would have gone to the Security Council and been vetoed. So all of the things that the court could have accomplished, they accomplished through this ruling. A ceasefire was never going to come through this ruling. And you know, I've been thinking
but it
about
kind of did. It kind of
And
did in a sense. Like they ordered a cessation of the war crimes.
Yeah, which
right?
all that's
which
all Israel's
in
doing.
effect,
Yeah.
that is in effect an order to stop Israel's military, because that's all they can do. They can't actually wage like, we are at a logical problem here.
Yeah,
because military logic of Zionism is eradication.
That's
and
right.
there's and that's obvious and naked. And now it's legally formalized. So that I think is the interesting sort of like, I mean, Justin, I sent you the decision on PDF. Maybe we should share that for the people who are going to watch this, because it is an interesting document to read. And it's something that, and that's the weird thing here. So like, they didn't ask for an actual ceasefire because, you know, other people pointed out that would have also had consequences for the Palestinian resistance too. Right. Even though, and so
they
like,
said they would, well, they said Hamas was pretty careful. They said they would abide by a ceasefire if Israel abided by it. But
plus
there's someone named Sorry, let me just quote
two.
Let me just do two quick things because just to finish, Rowan. There's someone named Rowan who's great on Twitter.
The founder of she's one of the co-founders of Decolonize Palestine.
So Rowan said something. She said something great here. She said, the internet, this was an uphill battle within an international legal system which basically came into existence not to stop all forms of mass violence, especially not colonial violence, but to try to prevent the West cannibalizing itself the way it cannibalized itself with the Holocaust. So it's like, this is an instrument that was designed to stop, to make Western countries function more efficiently without killing each other. And now it's being used, and that's why it's fun to see the global South using these instruments that were designed to subjugate it's an historical
irony.
And leaving the West in this no-win situation. Either they dismantle this whole system, which has brought them tremendous advantages over the centuries, or at least decades, of neocolonialism after World War II, or they have to allow it to indict their most precious, project. And that's pretty amazing. And the last thing before I rest my case.
You're not a lawyer,
Your Honor.
This is the People's Court, sir.
Well, I got a little I'm a little excited about this whole international law stuff. It's just but Amal Saad, and she is also very optimistic in an interesting way. She says on the one hand, it'll be viewed as a moral victory for the Palestinian cause, and on the other, it will be seen as vindicating its strategy of armed resistance. It'll be seen as a moral collapse for Israel and its Western sponsors. It'll help the axis of resistance cast Israel as a pariah state, and the axis will use Israel's contempt for the court and the West's disdain for its rulings to further expose their hypocrisies.
But
on the other hand, the failure to call for a ceasefire will be invoked as evidence that international law can't be relied upon. So from the resistance perspective, it's a win-win. The fact that they didn't call for a ceasefire was, if anything, more legitimizing of armed resistance. It's like they're calling on Israel to stop its genocidal activities. Israel's not going to stop its genocidal activities. And so again, as logic would dictate, the only people that can stop Israel within this framework of the law are the people that are fighting Israel right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the issues here, but just a small point, is that I don't think the ICJ can rule on Hamas because it's not a state actor. So on that front, I mean, it can only rule towards Israel and say, okay, you need to stop, which is what they did. Okay, that's fine. I think my only I don't have a reservation. I mean, the fact that, and it is a fact that contradictions are rising is fantastic. It means we are actually moving forward with this war of liberation of Palestine, and this is great. You know, it's another step to show how literally the West is collapsed. That it's okay. I mean, I don't deny that. The thing is, and I know whoever is watching us, you know, is that when we look at the International Criminal Court, when we look at the UN, when we look at all this, you know, legal entities, that's, you know, we need always to remind ourselves that there is a battlefield taking place. There is an axis of resistance in the region. And if you think that, and you think that Palestine should face this injustice, then you need to also be supportive of the axis of resistance, because that is something so crucial to this struggle for justice. So, I mean, it's just that I am incredibly cynical and skeptical towards the Western, you know, values, orders, and institutions. I know that a change on the battlefield will eventually trigger a change at the level of the institutions. So they two come together in parallel. But my God, guys, you need to do a much harder work to convince me.
But I mean, arguably, none of this would have even happened without the armed resistance.
Yeah.
Right? Because if the armed resistance had collapsed on day 5, like 1967,
that's right. Yeah.
Then none of this would have happened. There would be no court case. There'd be no
Bravo.
court order.
That's it, Justin. That's it. Thank you.
We have to end the episode now.
Yes, thank you. That's it.
Thanks, everyone. Yalla, bye. dun, 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 insert the theme music. No, you're right. You're right. I think there's a logical problem here, which is like the existence of Palestinian resistance like caused this to happen, right? Like the fortitude and its ability to withstand this kind of insanely genocidal war, like after more than 3 months, that itself is the historical. God, my dog is losing her mind. She closed the door. Daisy's barking at the TV, watching Israel probably. But like this is also part of a larger question, which is like, what does the meaning of soft power mean? Like, what is the meaning of soft power and like image, right? Like I've sort of increasingly viewed this view of like that thing that Amal Saad said, right? About exposing the hypocrisy. You know what? Liberals all around the world expose Trump's hypocrisy every day, 50 billion times a day, and it did nothing. It did anything. It didn't stop them. People who have no morals don't care about being exposed as hypocrites.
True.
We're not in some classroom where you can defrock your enemy and the teacher will say, well, I guess you won. Now you can go home with your not how unfortunately, this is not how the world works, that you can't just like truthify your enemy, right? And so like part of this struggle here is that the textual evidence of this victory is that it's important not to sort of like overread it into, I think it's, you know, like this exposure of Israel. Now, mind you, there is something very real about these cases. These are legally binding. And the fact that these courts have been used as a cudgel to wage foreign policy, now it's bounced back on them, right? Now those weapons deliveries are now going to be determined to be illegal. Will they stop? No. Will they even be halted? Will they be paused? I don't think so.
Right, but like remember, weapons deliveries are also like people sign off on them, right? Like people sign an order. People then go to work, and their job is bound by legal contract. Like the legal.
But who's going to arrest them, Justin?
No, I understand.
The world police.
I'm not like, saying.
No
I'm
one...
like
the word police. I like that.
No, hold on. But I mean that like you don't need. My dream. What I'm saying is, of course, enforcement follows way behind. Maybe never, but changes to the law and judgments in the law cannot be blown off by even the US and Israel. They need the law certainly more than say Ansar Allah. Like who needs the law more? Who benefits from the law more? The Houthis or the Americans?
Oh, yeah. I agree with
Right?
you. Yeah.
So like I know when you were comparing, the comparison to Trump is interesting, and the Democrats and Trump exposing the hypocrisy, but there is a difference between the court of public opinion and court, because if there wasn't a difference between the court of public opinion and court, that this whole case would have gone differently. Israel has been able to operate in the court of public opinion and blow off public opinion, but like they had to come to court and they had to sit there and listen to South Africa make their case. That they did not like doing that.
They had to listen to their own leaders and the statements of their own leaders.
Absolutely squirming through that. And then they shuffled their papers through this defense, or somebody else shuffled their papers through their defense, their miserable defense. And in a month, and I know people are like, oh yeah, now they gave them a month. They didn't give them anything. The International Court could not have stopped Israel from attacking Gaza. They didn't give them a month.
Which, by the way, just a note, they say that month time aligns with Biden's timeline of the ending the war by the end of February. Sorry, go ahead.
That's funny. I mean, that's they've been talking about ending the war by the end of December, ending the war by
that's all been a psyop.
Blah blah blah. Yeah. But the report in a month, Matteo, is gonna be so humiliating.
Oh,
what are they gonna write? And they are going to write that. Make no mistake, they are going to write a report, and they are going to submit that report, and South Africa is going to comment on that report, and that is going to be an incredibly humiliating exercise for Israel. Like,
just one thing. I agree with you. I mean, I agree with you, and I think the humiliation, it needs to be there. It needs to be in the public. I agree. Yeah. But we are talking about a government that really stands on a pedestal of morality, according to them. Yeah, I mean, I have to mention
down a couple notches today.
That's the same government that the three of us live under. Yeah. Like same thing.
True. But exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. But this is what I'm. That's what I'm trying. That's why I like a little bit the Trump kind of. There is a little bit of that in the sense that it all comes together. They need to want the gains in the battlefield will eventually, the material changes will eventually reflect the ideological changes. I mean, they come together. We know that. It's just, this country, this entity has really lost completely the compass. It has intensified. They come out and they say this is an arm of Hamas to the South African legal team.
Yeah.
Ben-Gvir and many others, they just call this anti-Semitic. They just dropped that word, insanely.
That's all they have.
That's all they have. But they exude, literally this we are above the law. It's literally that you can feel, they can say that so confidently because, the Western imperialism and all that. So that's why I say the law, it's good. What we're seeing, okay, it's good, but let's breathe and let's keep moving. Let's not just cheer. Then let's not have this feeling of victory. Let's not have this feeling, we need patience. We need sumud. We need steadfastness. That's what I think, this is going to be a long one. That's the only thing.
Can we read a bit of the decision, Justin? That
sure. Let me
because there's some interesting material there.
Okay, we'll read that and then we'll wrap up. We'll keep this short. Where you want the measures or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, I've released the audio on my feed.
Against Judge Sepperton. Okay. The court
was she on the Epstein the Lolita Express?
Weird. But
look up her name.
Indicates State of Israel shall take all measures within its power to prevent the commission of all acts killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group of conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, imposing measures to prevent births within the group. Sebutinde and Barak disagreed with this one. Ensure that its military does not commit any acts favored in point 1. Sebutinde and Barak, no.
My God.
take all measures within its power to prevent and punish the direct and public incitement to commit genocide in relation to members of the Palestinian
That's so
group in the
funny. This
Gaza
is the
Strip.
one Barack voted for.
Barack said, "Yeah, you know what? Yeah, they should really
that
stop
means
that."
that means this judge hates. This is such a telling moment that this Zionist judge hates Netanyahu and that government so much that they were willing to say to them that you're guilty of war crimes and you should be taken, like, oh, you're not guilty of these crimes, but in case you were, you should be charged. I mean, like,
Stop
this
saying
is,
it.
Yeah,
he's saying
like, stop
stuff.
saying
He's concerned with Israel, but he's concerned with Israel enough that he's like, we have to stop saying this stuff.
Can
somebody
somebody
the loud
please
part, saying the loud part, saying the quiet part loud is like Israel,
But-
the country right now.
But
you need to phone
Sebutinde-
Sebutinde. Phone her, please.
Sebutinde. But maybe it was like, I've been trying to figure out like whether it was like you slide.
Oh my
your
God, the
vote
next one
in,
is the best one.
But like whether you slid your vote in or whether it was a show of hands that everybody could see. So maybe Sebutinde thought there would be other people voting, and she just slid her votes in, and then and she was like, "What? Nobody else?" Immediate and effective
The next one is
measures
amazing.
to enable the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance to address the adverse conditions of life faced by Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Once again, Barack votes yes. Sebutinde votes no.
Telling you, the Mossad had something massive on her. I think
but this is cool. Preserve the evidence of genocide. Barack votes against that. he's like, I don't know. We should let them eat something. We should stop inciting to genocide, but we should definitely destroy the evidence, and then report measures to the court within a month. Sebutinde and Barack vote against.
And this is an American judge who's the president, right?
Yeah,
now.
American judge who defended America against Nicaragua's charges at the ICJ. You know, a Reagan era. Yeah, like this is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, these are not people.
These are not tankies.
These are not people who like if this was the Security Council and they were voting based on their country. A court where they're supposed to use logic, but they seem to have followed facts and logic, except for Sebutinde.
Justin, can you give me the goss about the Ugandan judge that you mentioned at the beginning, the theories why she voted for Israel?
Okay, yeah. So number one, Christian Zionism is very strong in Uganda, and the Christian evangelical Christian non-governmental organizations and related like Republican and other American Christian international networks are very strong in Uganda and have been for decades. So one theory is that this is someone who's under the influence of Christian Zionist ideology and wants the end times to come about, which also makes sense in terms of her accelerationist decisions relative to Barack, who's like a real liberal.
Exactly.
In denial, but like Sebutinde is just like, no, like burn it all down. And then the other theory is, you know, there was a long war in Uganda with lots of different factions involving, you know, where there was the overthrow of Idi Amin, and then there was a Bush war, and there were it was called the Bush War. There were two Bush wars actually, Obote and Museveni, and they fought a series of wars. And so depending on where you are politically in terms of those different groups, it's possible that, like, suppose you had some family or other reason to hate Idi Amin, and Idi Amin would be considered pro-Palestine, you know, so it could be something like that too. Those are the only two things I've read about. People were like, you know, the Zionists wanted to make Israel in Uganda, but it's not quite right. The Uganda plan was actually for Kenya.
Maybe she should become president of Uganda then.
Just become president of Israel.
Of Israel.
I mean, look, like this is the question, right? Like, what world do we live in? Do we live in a world that is governed by laws that
No.
has these like institutions? No, we know that, right? We know that like laws get broken and wielded. Laws get wielded to cause genocide.
Yes.
Like that's the fucked up, like that's the
Yes.
like fucked up thing,
Yes.
like of all this. That like, but now the like the genius of this like and the courageousness of this South African
Yeah.
gesture and like this really a gambit, and it's not even a gambit because it's a slam dunk case because they've been saying it the whole time, right? To just actually go through with it and call the world system's bluff at the end of the day. I think Matteo ultimately is right. Like that itself is the victory, to show that like there are symbolic places where Israel cannot escape its own actions, right? That like it can't win both ways. It can't, on the one hand, be this criminal regime that does everything illegal and worse that you can ever imagine, but on the other hand, have its ambassador to the UN hold up a sign that says women, life, freedom. Okay, that happened. That actually happened, right? You can't have it both ways.
But like there are these little moments, like you guys all saw when the Chinese ambassador was like, the Israeli guy was like absolutely disrespecting the rapporteur on the status of women, and the Chinese ambassador was just like, excuse me, esteemed Israeli member, you can make your points without interrupting our invited guest. And the Israeli guy was like, okay, sorry, yes, I'll go ahead, please. And
this is
anti-Semitic. Yeah, but like, well, no, good luck. Good luck with that, right? China's not gonna, China doesn't care. But let me just say before I wrap, I want to show you guys a couple of things, because this was something suspicious. Tarek actually sent me these. Yesterday, Germany Minister of Foreign Affairs said we need a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. There are international laws that regulate the right to self-defense.
Wow, Germany finally.
Yesterday. Why? The day before. Somebody knew, right? They knew. Finland said the time for Israel's self-defense is over. Israel's definitely not doing enough. The Finnish foreign minister told Germany. They knew this was coming. Germany
was the one saying we don't think it's genocide. That's hilarious.
Exactly.
Of all this. Yeah, so the flip-flopping is amazing.
Something's up, and then of course this guy says Netanyahu's government is starving. I'm just saying, all these people that have been lying all along.
That was Bernie, in case you were wondering who that was. People.
Oh yeah, that's right. This could be audio. It could be.
This will be audio. Most people will watch this, listen to this.
Many more. Anyway, so that's. I just think that's really interesting, because you have this. You do have some effect where the biggest backers in the West are scurrying.
But in fact, I really want to see what's going to happen now. I'm interested to see the reaction of all Europe and the US and all these genocidal, entities, whatever they are. I really want to see how they're going to, because they said it was meritless, unfounded. I want to see what they're going to say, and it's it's good anyway. It's good.
An American judge was reading that after Kirby said it was meritless, or whoever it was, the other guy, Blinken.
Just think that it was South Africa too. This country has suffered incredible violence for centuries, right? In the done by the very people, done by many of the same forces, and the people probably who are also doing the genocide or aiding and abetting the genocide in some way or another, right? Canadians, Americans, Brits, Dutch, Italians, right? To not connect Israel and Zionism to the history of European white supremacy, you're just like an idiot. You're just a moron, and you're being dishonest with yourself. And to not see the fact that, the legacy of that European settler colonial project continues to unfold inside Palestine, inside the Gaza Strip, in every genocidal statement by the butcher Gallant, by Netanyahu, the criminal. You have to be blind if you can't see that. You can't draw a line to the massacre of the buffalo to the starvation of Gazans. You're just a historically illiterate person if you want to deny that. But part of the brutality, like part of like the monumentality of our task in this like tanky project of ours is to like open these projects up and make these connections, right? Is to like see the historical valences like overplaying from like centuries ago, that like decisions to starve this region of like what is now the northeastern US versus like you know decisions to like blockade, to like this protest, spontaneous protest of Zionist settlers blocking aid trucks through Rafah that are themselves like hounded and held up by Zionist authorities, right? Like you just have to be ignorant and closed-minded to just not see that, or like hateful and supportive, right? Like there's only it's just naked before us. And so like this is one of those episodes where you're like, all I can do is bang my head on a table and say these things over and over and
over again. Yeah.
Like, you know, well, we're gonna wait and see. I think Matteo is right. We have to wait and see how this unfolds and how this ripples through our so-called international system, because ultimately, like neoliberalism needs a facade of legality, right?
That's
it needs
right.
a facade of Ordnung, of like legal Ordnung, to like present its violence as logical, right? It's like, oh, we went to the Security Council, then we destroyed Yugoslavia, right? So it has been holy, right? Like, I mean, of course, they went to the Security Council and they were denied of the Security Council and they went to Iraq anyways, right? So like we know that like it doesn't, that it will use and abuse all of these systems to its degree now. Yeah. We also saw that they used international law to be as a cudgel against Russia to expel them from every single like international organization, sporting federation, right? Will that happen with Israel now? I highly doubt it, because if it hasn't happened already.
But
like,
oh, by the way, did they fire Gary Lineker? By the way, I didn't follow up on that.
Who?
I don't know.
The guy from the BBC who said that Israel should have been
oh, I don't know, actually.
Expelled from football FIFA Association. Okay, I didn't know. Okay.
Anything else you want to add, Matteo?
One thing only. There is a symbolic victory to this. Or let's use the word victory to the fact that it comes on the 26th of January, and it claims that there are, you know, valid accusation of genocide, of acts of genocide of Israel in Gaza, which relates to what? To tomorrow, which is the Holocaust Remembrance Day. It is very important, you know, because that was actually genocide, like the one is happening now. The only thing is that that genocide has been weaponized to perpetrate the one that is happening now. So it is important to see also that there is actually, you know, a fil rouge between these two events and the continuity of European history. But you know, it has been definitely weaponized and overused and abused to justify things that they should have been justified in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, like, how to situate the history of the Shoah through all this is fairly easy, right? That like Europe solved its Jewish problem, right? And it's and folded into that Jewish problem is the forbearing, like the after effects of the guilt of letting that project unfold and being a happy part of that project, right? Like I always cite the fact that the Dutch have this like, oh, we were victims of Nazism. Oh, like they have a museum in Amsterdam of like museum of Dutch resistance. Like go and look and see what the rates were of volunteers to like
the West didn't have
like come on, man. Like this was a European project, and then they solved that project by allying with Zionism, which just so happened to give them a base in the world's most important geopolitical zone in terms of energy, right? Like this is not rocket science to like put these two things together. And as if we all know the degree to which the Shoah has been used as this paramount example of racism and genocide, when there's all kinds of genocides that litter our history, that European genocide specifically, that are abound and are also ongoing, that are not just ignored from the historical written, but written off as, oh, just part of modernity, right? So like this to me is not a logical problem that we have to solve. That like the institution of the Shoah as some kind of like marketing campaign is not something we have to like abide by. We can talk about the Shoah as an act of violence. We can talk about it as a historical act. Of course we should, but to worry about what it
Rabbani,
says,
but Rabbani's point, I think Muin Rabbani's point is like the court also, the decision today also has some bearing on the inability of Israel to use it to do more atrocities. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks.